The year is 1999, before the turn of the millennium. Pokémon Gold and Silver introduced the Johto region, and ever since, it's been heavily criticized. The lack of Johto Pokémon in Johto, broken level curve, Kanto steals the spotlight. But what if I told you that the Johto region has some of the best environmental storytelling in the entire franchise? And most people just missed it. Today, I'm breaking down the themes, characters, and cultural influences that make Johto a misunderstood masterpiece. And if you're into deep dives like this, hit subscribe. I've got a lot more coming. Let's address the elephant in the room. A lot of people think Johto is just Kanto 2.0, that it doesn't have its own identity and exists purely as an extension of the original region. And then there's the level curve. Once you hit the later gym leaders, you're forced to grind for hours just to stand a chance, while wild Pokemon remain inexplicably underleveled. These criticisms are completely valid. I'm not trying to pretend that Johto is perfect, but here's where I think gets lost in all of the discussions: the writing, the world building, and the characterization. Because when you look past the mechanical flaws, Johto is telling one of the most thematically rich stories in the entire Pokemon franchise. It's a region caught between tradition and change, torn between honoring the past and embracing the future. And that theme is baked into everything: the cities, the characters, even the legendary Pokemon themselves. And honestly, it nailed the cultural tensions happening in Japan at this time. Johto was released at the end of 1999, right before the turn of the millennium. Japan, like the rest of the world, was experiencing massive cultural shifts due to rapid modernization throughout the 90s. The country was caught in the tension between maintaining traditional values and embracing a modern future. Game Freak took that anxiety, that cultural moment, and built an entire region around it. So let's start with the people who define the region, the characters. Because if Johto's theme is about tradition versus change, then every major character becomes a symbol of one side or the other. And some, they're caught right in the middle, trying to figure out where they belong. Professor Elm is a perfect example of this generational shift. He's younger, more disorganized, and far less established than Professor Oak was in the previous games. And honestly, that's the point. Elm represents the new generation trying to step out from the shadows of the old. His primary research focuses on Pokemon breeding and evolution. In a region centered around change and transformation, of course the professor would be studying how Pokemon grow and evolve. It's perfect. But Elm isn't just defined by that research. He's defined by his insecurity. He's known for being scatterbrained and disorganized, so wrapped up in his work that, according to his wife, he sometimes forgets to eat. And he holds Professor Oak in almost reverent regard, constantly seeking his approval and validation. Elm isn't confident in his own authority yet. He's still learning, he's still growing, he's literally evolving as a researcher, just like the Pokemon he studies. And this creates this interesting dynamic. You, the player, are assisting somebody who's still figuring things out himself. Oak was the definitive expert. Calm, authoritative, established. Elm is going through what many feel like when they're first starting out in a higher position. He isn't perfect, but he's actively trying to adapt to his role as a Pokemon professor. It represents the flow of change seen in the Johto region. Elm represents the new generation stepping up. But to really understand Johto's relationship with tradition, we need to talk about the gym leaders, because they're where the theme gets really interesting. The first gym leader you encounter perfectly sets the tone for Johto's relationship with tradition: Falkner of Violet City. Falkner inherits his position from his father, who passed down not just the gym itself, but the very Pokemon you fight during the battle. A symbolic passing of legacy from father to son. And his design reflects that. Falkner wears a traditional martial arts gi with simple sandals, evoking the image of a disciplined student still in training. But here's the interesting part. He's also wearing a kimono jacket over his gi. It's like he's trying to maintain the uniform and maintain his father's legacy. Even his dialogue reinforces this. Falkner constantly talks about living up to his father's reputation, about proving himself worthy of the gym leader title. He's not confident in his own authority yet. He's still measuring himself against his father's shadow. Falkner represents the weight of tradition, the expectation to carry forward what came before, putting him in a role he was still being prepared to fill. So that's tradition. Falkner is weighed down by his father's legacy, trying to prove he's worthy of a title he never asked for. But the very next gym leader? The complete opposite. The second gym leader flips the script entirely. Bugsy, the bug-type expert of Azalea Town. Breaking from Falkner's inherited role, Bugsy represents earned change. Bugsy is a young prodigy in the world of bug types, where he actively researches bug types and their abilities. His knowledge led him not to just become the walking bug-type encyclopedia, but a gym leader who rose to the top early in his life through talent alone. And his design reflects this younger but expert status. Unlike Falkner's traditional gi, Bugsy wears an outfit similar to a scout, matching green shorts and shirt, with a bug-catching net slung over his shoulders. He looks less like a formal authority figure and more like an enthusiastic kid who loves Pokemon. Because that's exactly what he is. But here's what really sells Bugsy as an agent of change: his type speciality. Bug types are often overlooked, underestimated, seen as weak early game Pokemon, but Bugsy challenges that perception. He's taken something people dismissed and turned it into a strength, literally evolving the way people think about bug Pokemon. His ace, Scyther, is a fast, aggressive, and dangerous Pokemon, showcasing one of the few but powerful bug types that can make or break a battle at the beginning of the game. It's interesting to see Bugsy kickstart this feel of a non-traditional gym leader in comparison to Generation 1. A young bug catcher who's become an expert in his field, especially with a gym near Ilex Forest, a hotspot for bug types, but also a stark contrast with the extremely traditional Azalea Town, which I'll cover later in this video. To me, both Falkner and Bugsy give you a great introduction to the traditional culture found in the Johto region, but seated within is active change. Falkner and Bugsy set up the contrast perfectly: inherited tradition versus earned change. But the third gym leader takes on this theme in a completely different direction. Let's talk about Whitney. Raw talent without the maturity to back it up. Whitney is a tough gym leader, especially if you're not prepared to fight her milk tank. However, she is relatively new to battling, but caught the attention of the Pokemon League extremely early in her career. Even when she loses, she throws a tantrum, denying the player a badge. It truly represents a trainer who may be talented, but has not truly grown into their role as gym leader. I truly enjoy this little bit of writing in the games. To me, it shows that Johto is shifting from an older generation of trainers to newer talent. However, in this process, you get trainers who may not have lost before and are unable to understand that losing, and how you carry yourself through losing, is part of being a gym leader. Whitney's design is also super interesting. Her jacket is similar to an older style baseball uniform, an extremely popular sport that surged in popularity in the late 20th century in Japan. It feels like Whitney wears this either due to being a general fan or wanting to appear like a sporting professional, fitting for a gym leader wanting to fill the shoes that she may not be ready to fill. Fun fact, Whitney appears in HeartGold and SoulSilver as a contestant during the Pokeathlon. Pretty cool to see a gym leader competing in something outside of battles. Whitney shows us what happens when raw talent meets inexperience, when change happens too fast, before somebody is ready for it. But what about our next gym leader? He's the complete opposite. Where Whitney is rushing forward, Morty is looking backward. Now, let's step into the shadows with Morty, a gym leader who embodies the tradition in its purest form. Morty became a gym leader, secretly training his entire life just so he can await the return of Ho-Oh from tales he heard in the past. He's a good friend with Yucine, a character I will talk about later, but studies the legendary beasts with him. Morty truly embodies tradition, being motivated by witnessing the tales he heard when he was younger come true, which is fitting for a trainer who could see into the future. Morty is a ghost-type specialist who wants to test himself against strong opponents to evaluate his worth in seeing Ho-Oh. Upon his defeat, he recognizes he must train harder in order to be worthy of seeing Ho-Oh. However, he recognizes the worth of the player. Morty's entire character centers around rooting himself in the past and its legends, but has the ability to see into the future. It's an interesting running choice that makes me enjoy him as a gym leader. Both his designs go for different angles. His first design feels like a younger man trying to become a powerful gym leader, and the opposite of how you would see a ghost-type gym leader, while his remake design really embodies a ghost-type specialist following the path laid forth in tradition. Morty is so fixated on the legends of the past that he's dedicated his entire life to witnessing something from ancient mythology. He's tradition incarnate. And speaking of tradition, let's move to Cyanwood City and talk about Chuck, a man who refuses to let go of the old ways, even as time catches up with him. Cross the sea to Cyanwood City and you'll find Chuck. And honestly, he might be my favorite gym leader in Johto. He's an older man who still trains immensely in his gym, both physically and with his Pokemon. He truly embodies a man loyal to his tradition and holding on to the past. In his design, you could see a ripped martial arts uniform, with Chuck holding on to the past. Most may think a fighting-type gym leader would have massive muscles and a six-pack, but Chuck is a little bit different. He has a more stocky appearance, and it's not from laziness, but from his age. But his strength still endures. He trains to still hold the mantle as a fighting-type expert. He truly is my favorite Johto gym leader because of this. It takes the approach of a man still training hard to reach his final goal of being the strongest and a symbol for others to train as hard as he does. In the process to train, he does not spend much time with his family, prioritizing his training over anything else. Even after his defeat, he vows to train harder than before. I absolutely love how Chuck's writing embodies how a man refuses for change to occur. How he can't retire but needs to keep training to be one of the strongest. whether it's with Pokemon or his own physical abilities. It gives me this feeling of a man in a midlife crisis, not wanting to retire with age creeping up on him, refusing to spend time with his family to train more. So we've seen gym leaders who have inherited tradition, who break from it, who aren't ready for change, who worship the past, and who refuse to accept that times are changing. And then there's Jasmine, the Steel-type gym leader of Olivine City, and honestly, one of the most interesting examples of how Johto handles change. When you first meet her, she's not even in her gym. She's at the top of the Olivine Lighthouse, caring for Amphi, a sick Ampharos that powers the beacon. She refuses to battle you until you retrieve the medicine from Scionwood City, and she won't let anyone else administer it. Only she can heal Amphi, only Jasmine. This tells you everything you need to know about her character. She's compassionate, almost to a fault. She's shy, struggles to speak confidently, and puts the well-being of a single Pokemon above her duties as a gym leader. In a way, she represents the gentler side of change. Progress not driven by ambition or breaking tradition, but by care and empathy. And her type speciality reinforces this. Jasmine uses Steel types, a brand new type introduced in Generation 2, representing modernity and technological advancement. But here's the kicker. According to an NPC, she used to train Rock-type Pokemon like Onix. She evolved her strategy. She adapted and changed her typing to better stand a chance as a trainer. Jasmine is quiet change. She's not loud about it like Bugsy, and not insecure about it like Falkner. She just does it. She sees what needs to be done, whether that's healing a sick Ampharos or mastering a new type, and she commits. And maybe that's the most powerful type of change. The kind that doesn't announce itself, but shifts everything around it anyway. And here's a fun fact. In Generation 4, Jasmine appears vacationing in Sinnoh's Sunny Shore City, another port town with a lighthouse. But let's head north and talk about Price, a gym leader seasoned not just by the cold, but time itself. Price embodies something we really haven't seen yet in Johto, a trainer at the end of his journey, not the beginning. He's the Ice-type gym leader of Mahogany Town, and honestly, he feels like a man who's already at peace with stepping aside. He's just waiting for the right person to take his place. His design in Generation 2 showcases this perfectly. He's an older man, almost grandfatherly, dressed simply and humbly. He doesn't look like someone trying to prove himself anymore. He looks like someone preparing for the next generation. It's similar to Alder in Generation 5's Black and White 2, a former champion transitioning into a mentor role. But unlike Alder, Price holds on to the gym leader title, evaluating trainers on their battling skill before he chooses to retire. His remake design in HeartGold SoulSilver leads even harder into this. He's older, more weathered, with a cane to support him. He embodies exactly what you'd expect from an Ice-type gym leader, who's been frozen in his role for decades, literally and figuratively. The ice has preserved him, but time is catching up. And this is what makes Price such a great example of tradition in Johto. He represents the old guard, the seasoned veterans who've held positions for years and are now preparing to pass the torch. He's calm, measured, and patient. He's not fighting change like Chuck or clinging to the desperate past like Falkner. He's just making sure the next generation is ready before he steps down. Price is tradition at peace with its own ending. But if Price is the calm, patient embodiment of the old guard stepping aside, our final gym leader is the exact opposite. Let's talk about Claire. Claire is the Dragon-type leader of Blackthorn City, and she's not ready to accept that she's not the best. She's the cousin of Lance, the champion, and she mirrors him in almost every way. Blue outfit with Dragonair design elements, master of the dragon types, intense pride in her abilities. But where Lance is calm, collected, and humble, Claire is hot-headed, arrogant, and refuses to acknowledge defeat gracefully. Think of the contrast between Red and Blue in Generation 1. Lance is Red, the composed master. Claire is Blue, the cocky trainer who can't stand being second best. And just like Blue, Claire has only ever lost to one person, Lance. To her, losing to the player, a child, is unthinkable. And this is where her character gets really interesting. When you defeat Claire, she refuses to give you the Rising Badge. She makes you navigate to the Dragon's Den and complete a trial at the shrine in the center before she acknowledges her loss. It's petty, it's immature, but it's also deeply human. Claire has built her entire identity around being the best dragon trainer in Johto, second only to Lance. Losing to a rookie shatters that image, and she's not mature enough to handle it yet. But here's the thing. Claire does eventually acknowledge you. After the Dragon's Den trial, she gives you the badge and even encourages you to excel at the Pokemon League. It's begrudging, sure, but it's growth. She's learning. Slowly, that strength isn't just about never losing. It's about how you handle defeat. Claire represents the painful side of change, the ego death that comes when realizing you're not as untouchable as you thought. She's tradition, Dragon Master lineage, Blackthorn City's ancient dragon's den, colliding with reality, a new generation surpassing the old. And unlike Falkner, who inherited his position but lacks confidence, Claire earned hers but has too much confidence. She's going to have to learn humility the hard way. And that's all 8 gym leaders, each one representing a different facet of Johto's central theme. But the gym leaders are just the beginning. Let's talk about the Elite Four and the Champion. The Elite Four and Champion of Johto are a fascinating mix of new and old. Some are returning faces from Kanto, aged and evolved, while others are fresh talents stepping into the spotlight for the first time. And the mix? That's Johto in a nutshell. Let's start with Will, a brand new member of the Elite Four who specializes in psychic types. Will has traveled the world to become one of the strongest psychic type trainers, keeping that traditional goal many trainers aspire to do. But here's the twist. Unlike other psychic type specialists, like Sabrina, who exude quiet, mysterious power, Will is a showman. He's a magician and a performer. His Generation 2 design has this sleek black and red formal outfit with a mask covering his face, looking like he walked off the set of a stage performance. And if you're a Gundam fan, like a certain red comet. His Generation 4 design leans even harder into the magician aesthetic, with added flourishes that make him pop visually. Will feels like newer talent that was brought into the Pokemon League to replace Lorelei from the Kanto games. He represents the fresh blood, the new generation bringing style and flair to a position that used to be all about stoic power. He's traditional psychic mastery dressed up in modernity, showmanship, and spectacle. And then there's Koga, and honestly, Koga might be my favorite example of how Johto handles the passage of time. In Generation 1, Koga was the poison-type gym leader of Fuchsia City. Now, 3 years later, he's an Elite Four member, having been promoted to replace Agatha. But Game Freak didn't just swap him in with his old design. Look closely at Koga in Generation 2, and you'll notice something. His hair is graying. He's older, more seasoned. This isn't just the same ninja master we saw in Kanto. He's aged, grown stronger, and earned his place among the Elite Four through years of discipline and training. His team reflects this too. It's a step up from his gym leader days, more refined and dangerous. Koga represents the bridge between Kanto and Johto, the old guard who adapted and survived the transition. He didn't cling to his gym or retire like Agatha. He evolved with the times. And this is one of my favorite aspects of the Pokemon series as a whole, bringing back older characters, giving them age designs and modified teams, showing that they've grown just like the player has. It's brilliant. You see this with Red, Blue, Grimsley, and other characters throughout the franchise. Their experience shaped them into stronger trainers, and Koga is one of the earliest and best examples of this. There isn't much to say about Bruno, honestly, and maybe that's the point. He's the only Elite Four member who returned from Generation 1 completely unchanged. Same fighting type speciality, same discipline, same stoic demeanor. While others left or evolved, Bruno stayed. And maybe that's his role. He represents unwavering tradition, the idea that something doesn't need to be changed, that discipline and dedication could carry you through any era. He may have never wanted to abandon such an important position in the Pokemon League. So while others moved on, he stayed and worked on his team to prepare himself for stronger trainers. Here's a fun detail. In Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, Bruno turns his back to the player after being defeated. If we take that into account, he most likely felt shame in his loss and stuck around to train harder. Similar to how Chuck constantly trains to improve, except instead of a midlife crisis, it's personal shame driving him forward. Bruno is tradition that refuses to budge. He's not growing, he's just enduring. In a region obsessed with tension between old and new, sometimes endurance is its own statement. Now, let's talk about Karen, because she's one of the most thematically rich members of the Elite Four, and honestly, her remake design does a huge disservice to this character. Karen is a Dark-type specialist, and in the original games, her design reflected that perfectly. A sleek black and purple dress, embodying the dark, mysterious aesthetic of her type. But more importantly, her philosophy defines what it's meant to be a Dark-type trainer, in a way that makes perfect sense. After you defeat her, she tells you, strong Pokemon, weak Pokemon. That is only the selfish perception of people. Truly skilled trainers should win by using their favorites. This is essential for understanding Karen. She doesn't use dark types because they're edgy or because she's evil, she uses them because they're wild, tough, and misunderstood. She's intrigued by danger and strength, but also by the idea that people underestimate dark types the same way they underestimate unconventional strategies. She's challenging the player's perception of what makes a Pokemon good. Karen represents a rejection of the old hierarchies, the idea that only certain Pokemon or strategies are legitimate. She's change in its most philosophical form, questioning the assumption that tradition has built, But here's my issue with the remake design. They changed her outfit to brighter colors, and it takes away from someone who's deeply intrigued by the dark types. The original design feels like a dark type trainer, mysterious, elegant, and dangerous. The remake design feels softer, less committed to the aesthetic, and for a character whose entire philosophy is about embracing what others dismiss, that's a huge loss. Still, Karin Saolong and team speaks for themselves. She's one of the most memorable Elite Four members in the franchise, and her message about training your favorites resonates just as much today as it did in 1999. And finally, we have Lance, the former leader of the Elite Four in Kanto and now the champion of Johto. And honestly, Lance might be the blueprint for what every champion should be. You first meet Lance when he's investigating Team Rocket's activities at the Lake of Rage. They're using radio frequencies to force Pokémon to evolve prematurely. Lance asks for your help in capturing the enraged Red Gyarados, and then storms Team Rocket's hideout with you. This is where Lance proves he's worthy of the champion title. He uses his Dragonite to blast open the entrance to Team Rocket's hideout. He fights his way through waves of grunts and admins alongside you. He shows genuine concern for the Electra being used as living batteries in Team Rocket's schemes, worrying for their safety even in the middle of a raid. Lance is calm and collected, but he uses his power when needed for the greater good. He's hands-on, involved, and deeply invested in protecting Johto. His relationship with Claire is fascinating too. He tries to humble her, to teach her that being a Dragon Master isn't only about strength, it's about wisdom, maturity, and respect. He's the ideal she's chasing, but he's also the one reminding her that she's not there yet. Lance laid the blueprint for champions like Cynthia, Alder, and Leon, active participants in the region's conflicts, not just the final boss waiting for you at the end of Victory Road. His influence even extends to your rival Silver. Speaking of Silver, if there's one character who truly embodies Johto's theme of change from the beginning, it's him. When you first meet Silver, he breaks into Professor Elm's lab and steals a Pokémon. Not because he loves Pokémon, but he sees them as a tool for power. He's cold, angry, and dismissive. He calls his Pokémon weak and useless when they lose. He has no bond with his team. They're weapons, not partners. Throughout your journey, other trainers warn Silver about this. They tell him he's strong, but his anger and lack of care for his Pokémon will hold him back. At first, Silver doesn't listen. He doubles down. He gets angrier. He refuses to accept his philosophy might be flawed. But then, something shifts. After repeated losses to you and a pivotal encounter with Lance, who tells him his approach is wrong, Silver starts to change. Slowly, reluctantly, but genuinely. By the time you face Silver at the Pokémon League, his dialogue has changed. He's not calling his Pokémon weak anymore. He's starting to understand that strength comes from trust, not from domination. And when you battle him for one last time, his transformation is complete. He's calm, respectful. He's become the rival he was always capable of being. Silver's arc is Johto's thesis statement in character form. He starts rooted in a toxic, power-obsessed philosophy treating Pokémon as tools. Through loss, reflection, and the influence of people like Lance and the player, he learns to embrace change. He evolves not just his Pokémon, but himself. But here's the kicker. Silver is Giovanni's son, the leader of Team Rocket. The embodiment of using Pokémon for selfish gain is Silver's father. Silver's entire journey is about reflecting his father's legacy and choosing a different path. He's the ultimate example of breaking from tradition to become something better. Silver proves that change isn't just possible, it's necessary. And in a region caught between honoring the past and moving forward, Silver shows us that sometimes the best way to move forward is to let go what came before. Now, let's talk about Yucine, a character who's obsessed with the past in a very different way than Morty. Yucine is a researcher you meet throughout your journey, who has dedicated his life to tracking down Suicune, one of Johto's legendary beasts. He and Morty are good friends, both sharing a passion for Johto's folklore and legends. But where Morty seeks Ho-Oh, Yucine seeks Suicune. His obsession is all-consuming. You encounter Yucine repeatedly as he chases Suicune across Johto and even into Kanto. Each time, he's one step behind, never quite catching up to the legendary Pokemon he's been spending his life pursuing. But here's what's fascinating. When you finally encounter Suicune at Cerulean Cape, Yucine steps aside. He urges you to engage with it, to prove yourself worthy. Whether you catch it or defeat it, Yucine expresses no regrets. He witnessed the moment he's been chasing his entire life, and that's enough for him. It's revealed in HeartGold and SoulSilver that Yucine was told stories about Suicune by his grandfather, who was deeply knowledgeable in Johto's folklore. Yucine's obsession isn't just personal, it's generational. He's carrying forward a family tradition, keeping legends alive through its pursuit. Yucine represents how many romanticize tradition. The idea that the past holds something sacred and beautiful worth chasing, even if you never quite reach it. He's not trying to change the world or break from the old ways. He's trying to experience them, to touch something ancient and mythical. And speaking of tradition, let's talk about Kurt, the apricorn ball craftsman of Azalea Town. Kurt is an expert at crafting Pokeballs from apricorns, a technique that was common in Johto's past, but has largely been forgotten as mass-produced Pokeballs have become the standard. Kurt seems to be one of the few people left who possess this knowledge, keeping an ancient craft alive through sheer passion and dedication. It's similar to how real-world artisans preserve traditional crafts long after modern methods have become obsolete. Kurt isn't crafting apricorn balls because they're better than modern Pokeballs. He's doing it because it's part of Johto's heritage, and he refuses to let that knowledge die with his generation. Even his demeanor reflects this. He's an older man, stubborn and set in his ways, fiercely protective of Johto's traditions. When Team Rocket invades Slowpoke Well to steal and sell Slowpoke tails, Kurt charges in to stop them, alone. He's not a trainer. He's just an old man with a cane. He's just an old man, and he ends up falling down the well and injuring himself in the process. But here's the thing. He scared off a Team Rocket run. Even injured, even outmatched, Kurt refused to let them desecrate a sacred place to Azalea Town's history. And that's dedication. That's tradition in its most stubborn, admirable form. Kurt represents the people who keep the old ways alive not because they're practical, because they matter. And in a region racing towards modernity, people like Kurt are the anchors that remind everyone where they came from. Now, I really want to touch on Team Rocket. I'm saving a detailed breakdown for another video, but they're too important in Johto's theme to skip entirely. Team Rocket in Generation 2 is a shell of what it used to be. Giovanni is gone. The organization has crumbled without him, and yet the remnants refuse to still move on. They cling desperately to the past, trying everything they can to bring Giovanni back and restore Team Rocket to its former glory. They take over the Goldenrod radio tower to broadcast a message calling for Giovanni's return. They experiment with forced evolution at the Lake of Rage, trying to create powerful Pokemon to prove that they're still relevant. They're not moving forward. They're frozen in time, unable to accept that their era is over. Team Rocket and Johto is what happens when tradition refuses to die gracefully. They're the dark side of clinging to the past, the inability to let go, even when it's clear when the world has moved on. And it's fitting that Lance and the player dismantle them for good, because Johto's story is about growth and change. Team Rocket represents stagnation, and in a region embracing the future, there's no room for that. So we've covered the characters, gym leaders, Elite Four, champions, rivals, side characters, and even the villains. But now, let's zoom out and talk about the region itself, because Johto isn't just a setting. It's a character in its own right, and every city, every route, every landmark reinforces this theme we've been discussing. Johto, out of all the Pokemon regions, directly mirrors its real-world counterpart, the Kansai Johto region of Japan. The Kansai Johto region of Japan is a place of immense cultural significance, blending traditional Japanese structures with modern cities. Game Freak captured the soul of this area, and a key example of that is Violet City. Violet City mirrors Nara, Japan, one of the oldest and most historically significant cities in the country. Both are known for their preservation of traditional wooden structures, ancient temples, and deep cultural roots. In Violet City, you'll find Sprout Tower, a pagoda where monks train with Bellsprout, meditating on the philosophy of swaying but never breaking, a metaphor for resilience through flexibility. The entire city feels steeped in history, tradition, and spiritual discipline. It's quiet, respectful, rooted in the past. It's no coincidence that Falkner, the gym leader who inherited his position from his father, is based here. Violet City is where Johto's journey begins, and it sets the tone. This is a region from where tradition runs deep. Fun fact, the Stantler outside of Violet City is most likely a reference to the high amounts of deer located near Nara. Moving south, you'll find Azalea Town, a small, rural settlement that feels like it's been preserved in amber. Azalea is home to Kurt and the Slowpoke Well, a sacred site where Slowpoke have lived peacefully for generations. The Slowpoke Well isn't just a dungeon. The Slowpoke Well is a cultural landmark. The people of Azalea Town revere Slowpoke, and where Team Rocket invades the well to harvest Slowpoke tails for profit, it's treated as a desecration of something sacred. This isn't just pure Pokemon welfare. It's about protecting a culture's tradition and their heritage. Azalea represents rural Johto, the small communities that keep ancient practices alive, even when the world modernizes around them. Kurt's apricorn balls, the Slowpoke Well, even Bugsy's gym. Everything is rooted in respecting nature and preserving what came before. It's a town that refuses to be rushed into the future. Now contrast this with Goldenrod City, which mirrors Osaka, a bustling modern metropolis known for commerce and entertainment. and that urban energy. Goldenrod is the largest city in Johto, packed with a radio tower, a department store, an underground path with vendors, a game corner, and countless NPCs going through their busy lives. It's loud, it's crowded, it's modern. This is Johto embracing progress, urbanization, and technology. The clash is intentional. You go from Violet and Azalea's quiet tradition to Goldenrod's overwhelming modernity. Game Freak is showing you the spectrum. Johto isn't just one thing. It's a whole region that's caught between the worlds of being modern and stuck in the past. Then there's Ecruteak City, which mirrors Kyoto, the ancient capital of Japan and one of the most culturally significant cities in the world. Kyoto is known for its temples, shrines, traditional wood buildings, and preservation of Japanese heritage. Ecruteak captures this perfectly. Ecruteak is home of the Burn Tower and the Bell Tower, both of which are steeped in Johto's mythology. The Burn Tower is where the legendary beasts were resurrected by Ho-Oh after a fire destroyed the original tower. The Bell Tower is where Ho-Oh is said to rest, accessible only by those deemed worthy by the Komodo girls, guardians of Ecruteak's traditions. Everything about Ecruteak City screams reverence for the past. The Komodo girls perform traditional dances. Morty, the gym leader, is obsessed with the ancient legends. Even the architecture feels frozen in time. Ecruteak is Johto's spiritual heart, the place where mythology and reality interact. And then there's Olivine City, which mirrors Kobe, Japan, a major port city known for international trade and its iconic harbor. Olivine is where tradition and modernity meet most explicitly. The Olivine Lighthouse is a symbol of guidance, history, and tradition that stands tall over the harbor, where ships from around the world would come and go, representing globalization and progress. Olivine is a bridge between old and new, and Jasmine is its guardian. Cross the sea to Cyanwood City, and you'll find a town that feels isolated from Johto's modernization, literally and figuratively. Cyanwood City is only accessible by surf, tucked away on a distant island, far removed from the region's urban centers. Cyanwood is home to Chuck, the fighting-type gym leader who refuses to retire, and the Cyanwood Pharmacy, which provide the medicine needed to heal Amphi in Olivine City. It's a small, quiet town that feels untouched by time, a place where tradition persists simply because change hasn't reached it yet. But Cyanwood isn't stagnant. It's remote, yes, but it also has a self-sufficient element. The pharmacy represents local expertise, the kind of community knowledge that doesn't need Goldenrod's technology to thrive. There's also a heavy fisherman presence, able to find a self-sustaining food source. Cyanwood is proof that tradition can survive on its own terms, even in isolation. Then there's Mahogany Town, a small, secluded village nestled in the mountains, surrounded by snow and ice. Mahogany feels more isolated than Cyanwood, like a place the world forgot, and beneath it, Team Rocket's secret hideout, where they're conducting experiments with radio waves to control Pokémon. The contrast is stark. Above ground, a quiet, traditional town. Below ground, a desperate attempt to use modern technology for sinister purposes. Mahogany Town represents the tension between surface-level tradition and hidden corruption. It's a way where the old ways stay preserved, but rot festers below. And Price, the elderly gym leader, stands as the guardian of this dying town, literally frozen in place, unable to move or let go. Just north of Mahogany Town is the Lake of Rage, where Team Rocket's experiments have forced a Magikarp to evolve prematurely into a red Gyarados. This is one of the most explicit examples of what happens when you force change unnaturally. The red Gyarados is suffering. It didn't evolve because it was ready. It evolved because it was forced by radio waves that disrupted its natural growth. It's a metaphor for change that happens too quickly, without care or consideration for the consequences. Lance and the Plater intervene here, calming the red Gyarados and dismantling Team Rocket's operations. And it's fitting that the champion, someone who represents mastery, wisdom, and balance, is the one to stop this preservation of natural evolution. Change should be gradual, respectful, and earned. The Lake of Rage shows what happens when it's not. Finally, there's Blackthorn City, the most remote and traditional city in Johto, nestled deep in the mountains and accessible only after navigating the ice path. Blackthorn is home to the Dragon's Den, a sacred training ground where Dragon-type masters have honed their skills for generations. Blackthorn represents the pinnacle of tradition, the old guard at its most concentrated. This is where Claire, the Dragon-type gym leader and Lance's cousin, resides. And the Dragon's Den isn't just some simple dungeon where you can capture Dragon types. It's a rite of passage, a test of worthiness that every challenger must pass before being acknowledged. Everything about Blackthorn screams legacy. lineage, and mastery through discipline. It's the furthest point of Goldenrod's modernity, both geographically and philosophically. And it's fitting that it's your final gym, the last bastion of tradition before you face the Elite Four champion. Now, let's talk about the legendary Pokémon of Johto. They're the entire foundation for this region. Every legend, every story, every ancient tale ties back to these Pokémon. And more importantly, they represent the core themes of Johto on a symbolic level. Ho-Oh is the guardian deity of Johto, a rainbow Pokémon said to bring eternal happiness to those of pure heart. Its wings shimmer with 7 colors, and legends say it leaves a rainbow in its wake whenever it flies. But Ho-Oh's story centers on rebirth. When the brass tower in Ecruteak City was struck by lightning and burned to the ground, 3 Pokémon perished in the flames. Ho-Oh descended from the sky and resurrected them as Raikou, Entei, and Suicune, the legendary beasts. Ho-Oh embodies the ability to rise from tragedy, to transform loss into something new. It's the ultimate symbol of change through destruction and renewal. The old tower burned, but from its ashes came a new legend. The past was honored, but the future was born. And here's the key. You can only encounter Ho-Oh at the top of Bell Tower after proving yourself to the Kimono Girls, the guardians of Ecruteak's tradition. You can't walk up and you have to earn the right by respecting Johto's culture and history. Ho-Oh is tradition demanding that you honor the past before embracing the future. Lugia is the counterpart to Ho-Oh, but where Ho-Oh represents the sky, light, and rebirth, it represents the sea, mystery, and preservation. Lugia is said to dwell in the Whirl Islands, deep within the ocean's surface, sleeping to avoid causing catastrophic storms with the power of its wings. It's a Pokémon of restraint. It chooses not to act, because its power is too great to use carelessly. Lugia represents the cautious approach to change. Where Ho-Oh embraces transformation and renewal, Lugia embodies the idea that sometimes the best course of action is patience. Not every change needs to happen immediately. Sometimes power must be restrained, traditions must be protected, and the status quo must be maintained until the right moment arrives. And just like Ho-Oh, you can't casually encounter Lugia. You need the Silver Wing to prove yourself. Lugia doesn't reveal itself just to anyone. It tests you, it observes you, and only emerges when it deems you worthy. Together, Ho-Oh and Lugia represent the duality of Johto: rebirth and preservation, change and stability, the sky and the sea. They're 2 sides of the same philosophical coin. The legendary beasts are the physical manifestation of birth through tragedy. They were once the ordinary Pokémon who perished in the burned tower fire, only to be resurrected by Ho-Oh and transformed into living legends. Each beast represents a different aspect of nature and change. Raikou embodies the storm, swift, powerful, and unpredictable. It races across Johto like lightning, never staying in one place. Raikou is change that happens suddenly, explosively, and without warning. Entei embodies fire and passion. It's said that a new Entei is born every time a volcano erupts. Entei represents the destructive side of change, the idea that sometimes transformation requires burning away the old to make room for the new. Suicune embodies purity and grace. It travels across Johto, purifying polluted waters wherever it goes. Suicune is change that heals, that cleanses, that restores balance. It's the gentlest of the 3 beasts, and fittingly, it's the one that Yucine has dedicated his life to finding. The beasts roam freely across Johto, appearing and disappearing at random. You can't predict them. You can only chase them, encounter them by chance, and hope to prove yourself worthy when the moment comes. They represent the uncontrollable nature of change itself. It happens whether you're ready or not, and all you can do is adapt. And finally, there's Celebi, the time travel Pokémon. Hidden deep within Ilex Forest, Celebi is unique among Johto's legendaries because it exists out of time. It could travel freely between the past, present, and future, appearing in peaceful areas and disappearing through times of conflict. It is said that Celebi only appears in times of peace, and its presence is a blessing to the forest it inhabits. Celebi represents the thread that connects the past, present, and future. It's the idea that time is not a straight line, interconnected, and constantly influencing itself. The past shapes the present shapes the future, and sometimes the future changes how the past is viewed. In the context of Johto's themes, Celebi is the ultimate symbol of balance. It shows that you can't separate tradition from progress. They're part of the same continuum. Honoring the past doesn't mean rejecting the future. Embracing change doesn't mean forgetting where you came from. Celebi exists in all moments at once, proving that both can coexist. And the fact that Celebi is hidden in Ilex Forest, a sacred place in Johto, reinforces this. The shrine in Ilex Forest is a place where many leave offerings. where the boundary between the mundane and the mythical blurs. Celebi is the guardian of that boundary, the keeper of Johto's soul. Johto feels like a region filled with tradition that is slowly transitioning into modernity. The clash between locations like Goldenrod and Olivine, modern and bustling, versus Violet City, Azalea Town, and Ecruteak City, traditional and rooted in the past, is deliberate. Game Freak wanted players to feel that tension, that sense of culture in flux. And the legendary Pokemon reinforce this at every level. Ho-Oh and Lugia represent rebirth and preservation. The legendary beasts represent uncontrollable transformation. Celebi represents the eternal connection between the past, present, and future. Johto is not an extension of Kanto. Johto is a thesis statement about what it means to grow while respecting where you came from. And that's why, despite its many mechanical flaws, Johto remains one of the most thematically rich regions in the entire Pokemon franchise. This theme of change is even more evident in the Kanto postgame of Generation 2, where the Kanto region has undergone massive change in the 3 years since Red's journey. Characters have aged, locations have been destroyed or rebuilt, and the entire region feels different. But I'm saving the Kanto portion of Generation 2 for a future video. This one's already long enough, and I have a lot to say about how Kanto reflects the passage of time. I want to thank everyone for watching this video. It means a lot, and all the support you've shown during December has been incredible. We grew almost 4 times the size from where we started, and I genuinely appreciate every single one of you. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing. I make a range of short-form and long-form content here on the channel, and there's plenty more deep dives where that came from. But for now, I'm signing off.